This is The Unsweetened Truth with Kristen Pucci, where we talk about everything but don't sugarcoat anything. Welcome back to The Unsweetened Truth with Kristen Pucci. I have another awesome guest today, one that we have been patiently anticipating for her to come on because I just know that it's going to be a good one. I just know, oh, we've got about a dog barking. Nope, we're all right.
I love this dog.
Yeah, look at her little butt.
She's adorable.
Isn't she cute? But so this episode is going to be a great one. Claudia and I have known each other for some time now. But before we get started, I just want Claudia to introduce yourself and tell the people who you are and anything else you think is important.
Hey, I'm Claudia. I am a recovering golf pro, a recovering attorney, turned executive coach, workshop developer, meeting facilitator. I'm really passionate about people, about communication, about driving deliverables and success in a positive and healthy way in organizations. I have two amazing daughters who are pursuing their dreams really, really well. I have a great partner on my life journey. He's an amazing husband, successful in his own right, and is really comfortable with being called out as, oh, you're Claudia's husband when we go places. And I think we'll probably chat about that a little bit today.
Yes, we will.
Yeah. And I love great food. I love my Italian-American culture.
Your wine.
I love wine. And I love the new things that I'm doing with my time and energy, continuous learning and improvement and development. I'm just really passionate about all this stuff.
So clearly we're going to have some fun today. This woman has a lot of depth to her and a really interesting story. And the topic we're going to get into today, I don't know what exactly we're going to name it yet. Carolyn's going to work on that. Gina's going to work on that. But overall, there has been a consistent theme in both of our lives, as well as we can make the assumption for other women's lives as well. When you are a successful, and feel free to fill in any other words, a successful,
outspoken,
confident, motivated, high-performing female, finding a good partner, husband, mate, to go on that journey with you is quite difficult. And we're going to unpack that today. Anything else you can think of?
Oh, that's a great place to start. Not only that, translate that to workplaces and spaces too, because finding colleagues who are okay with working with and outspoken.
Or being led by.
And I'm not talking about, and this is the difference between, oh, she's a bitch versus she's confident and direct.
Yeah.
All the different labels we experience over the course of our careers, and there's just so much, and it happens in our personal relationships, it happens in our professional relationships. And what I love about this is that I'm 50, and if anyone knows Sally O'Malley from Saturday Night Live, I'm 50. And
I'm 31.
Kristen's 31. And we have similar experiences, even with a 20-year age gap. And my daughters are now beginning to experience the same things I experienced.
Yep.
So it's still all there.
Yeah. No, it definitely is. And I think let's maybe just get started, is unpacking maybe some of our first experiences. Because I don't want to come swinging out the gate and just be like insecure men, but kind of. Like, I kind of want to come out and just go, here's been some of my first examples of it. And I would say for me, it was dating, early into dating, even before Cray. It was different because I grew up in a house with a dad and two brothers, and I had a dad that was like, you can be anything and do anything that you want. And I never felt like I could do anything less. I never felt less. The only time that I'd say there was any a little bit of unhealthy competition was just because both of my brothers were so smart and book smart-y, and I was very different. So there was a little bit of okay, you're an engineer and a doctor, and I'm a creative. But I grew up and I came from that style of family, and I had a mother who was like, they're just jealous of you. I had one of those moms. They're just jealous of you. So you grow up being pretty confident, and you grow up, and I'm also Italian. So you grow up in that Italian culture of just you talk with your hands, you're loud, you take up space, and trying to translate being this woman with people who didn't grow up that way and didn't experience a dad like that or parents like that or that type of upbringing. They have their own story. Kind of meeting and coming together has been really, really difficult. So I'd say dating early on was difficult no matter what, even before I became incredibly successful in business, just because of my personality. But then it became even more obvious the more successful I got.
And remind me where you are in the birth order.
I'm middle between two boys.
Okay.
So I'm highly rebellious and risky and
and
beat to my own drum.
I am the youngest of 4 girls to a very traditional Italian American man who wanted a son to carry on the family name, to be the one who palled around like a little boy did.
Yeah.
And it was the best thing that could have happened to my father, because he realized in having 4 girls that he wanted for us exactly the opposite of how he engaged in a relationship with my mother. So he made my mother quit her job when they got married. She needed to stay home and be a homemaker, and she didn't have a choice in the matter. And my dad was a great dad. He was not a great husband, and their relationship was toxic. But he realized through all of this that it was very important to him that we grow up to not depend on anyone else for money, so that we could be self-sufficient and independent no matter what.
Yeah.
And it completely changed his philosophy on what the role of a woman is in society and culture.
Now, I have a question about that. Did he know that, do you think, from the beginning? Or do you think he learned that through the type of marriage that he had, that he was like, oh, this was a bad... Do you see why I'm asking that?
Yeah.
Because it's like, if he had that mindset, why did he create that situation for himself?
I don't think he realized what he was doing at the time. He learned it over the course of time.
Yeah.
And I 100% believe that if he had a son, he would not have had the realizations that he had.
Yeah.
I believe it. And I believe it because he and I talked about it at length. I have always been a really curious person, and I asked him a lot of questions. I had a lot of time alone with my dad.
Yeah.
And I asked him a lot of questions about it. I asked him questions about his relationship. I asked him questions about us and why education was so important to him for his daughters. My mom has she passed away. She had a high school diploma. She was very smart, but didn't have an education beyond high school. And that there were certain things that I learned. He kind of cut her off from opportunity, not even for education, but just to go do stuff. And then she was paralyzed with fear after that to go try anything. So he just wanted to make sure that we were never in that position.
Wow, that's powerful.
Now, he also nicknamed me Clyde and taught me how to golf and fish. And I essentially became...
Like, you're going to be my little girl. Yeah. You're going to be a boy.
I put the waders on and went out into the rivers and did all the things. But.
I did that too. And I always joke about that I feel like I was my father's son and daughter sometimes, because like my brothers were into boy stuff, but I remember a lot of me being really interested in those types of things. My father made a concerted effort to, like, when there was a issue with a vehicle or something, he was like, come here, you're going to learn.
Oh yeah.
Like,
you had to do that.
Yeah.
You had to learn how to change a tire, change the oil.
Air. Well, that's where I was going with the oil filter.
Oh.
The air filter. Like, I know where that is. I know where the oil is. I know what the
Check
lights
all
mean.
Of our fluids,
yeah, like all of those types of things, or even wood. Like, I remember, like, I love anytime that I get the opportunity to, like, start a fire now, because we grew up with a fireplace and, like, I learned how to start a fire. And so it was really important for him to make sure that I knew how to handle myself. And it's funny, even now, I feel like, and I know my mother has the best of intentions with this, but like, I feel a lot more pressure from my mom than I do my dad in regards to not being married yet or not having kids. And my dad's like, well, find the right person, like make sure you're right. But I also know that I'm like the one girl and I'm his special thing. But yeah, he just, that I think just has given me so much confidence. And you always see that all the time, that it's like, there's all the girls that had the dad that were like, you don't need a man. And then now you're trying to date and you're trying to find someone who brings more to the table than you do, even from like a masculine perspective. Because I learned how to be, I feel like, a guy and a girl. You know what I mean? I learned masculine and feminine things. And now trying to find someone that meets you there has been quite difficult.
Remember how I said I'm 50 and you're 31?
Yes.
So I'm in a great, true partnership now. I had my share of mistakes.
Yeah.
And there are certain things that stand out to me. And so I was married before Steve, my current husband. And there were certain things that I found myself, it's almost like you're having an out-of-body experience. And you're saying, how did I actually make this decision? And I really believe I knew in my heart of hearts that it was wrong, but I kind of was just so far down a path, and the signs were all there, but it really wasn't about wanting to build something or going to something. It was more about running away from something at that particular time in my life. But things like, at the time I was in this relationship, I was working as a golf pro. Well, I decided that really wasn't what I was passionate about. I wanted to go back to school. I wanted to go to law school. So I applied to law school, and then it became these little things here and there, like, you're putting us into debt. Well, yes, I'm taking out student loans to pay for school, but this is an investment in our future.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's that short-term thinking. There's a lot of very short-term thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
So it started with that, and then I get a summer internship experience, and my ex-husband said, I don't like that you're going to make more money at this summer job than I'm making in my career job. And I was like,
I mean, honestly, I'm going to give him kudos for even saying that, though. Like, because there's some that don't even say that.
Who just have
Project.
the resentment build up.
Well, correct. That's what I've experienced, is that there's like a projection of that they like pinpoint on another issue. Like, you're too busy. You don't have enough time for me. I had a man that literally gave me a book one time. He gave me a book, and it was called Choosing to Cheat. Choosing to Cheat. Okay. Now, this was a book, mind you. This is how crazy this is. So he was on the way down in his career, and I was on the way up in my career.
Okay.
He gave me a book called Choosing to Cheat, and he literally scribbled out the note that someone else had put in it to gift it to him, okay? So mind you, think of the projection and the manipulation that's occurring right now. He scribbled out the note and then wrote to me something along the lines, not verbatim, but it was like, hopefully this book can help you, like it's helped me in the past. And then, of course, like the religious manipulations brought in, like, I hope God continues to bless you in your business and da-da-da-da-da-da. But he put this book on top of my stuff when I was like coming to pick up. I had things at his house or whatever, and I came to pick them up, and he put this book on top of it. And it was all about how cheating can go beyond like with someone else. You can cheat on someone with your career. And I was like, huh? When at first those were all the things that you loved about me. I was, very motivated.
Yeah.
I was this, I was that, I was what. But then it's like, I don't know what switch happens. I don't know exactly when they get there, because I do believe that initially they do like that about you. They do. But then some switch happens along the lines that they're like, I don't like this anymore. And maybe they see that you can't be controlled, or they see that you whatever it is. But like that's just one example of the many examples that I've experienced. That's like there's such a drastic like flip and flop, and something like that occurs.
A family member, I won't say who, but a family member of my ex-husband said to me, as the relationship was starting to go south, this family member said, you need to really start playing more golf again for this, it wasn't like to make things right or to make it, but it was, I was shifting my focus from golf to other stuff, and I wasn't playing as much golf anymore. And that was the thing that connected my ex-husband and me in the first place. I needed to get back into golf and play more golf in order.
And someone else told you to do this.
A member of his family told me that, and I was like, "Oh, okay." So it's me, and it's my, I mean, it's just, hindsight is everything, but
it's because you changed.
I changed.
You changed. And that's the thing that I don't get, because I feel like, and again, I'm not married. I haven't had this experience yet, but like what I have heard and what I'm expecting is that like when you get married and when you get involved with someone, that person is not going to be the same, and they should not be from the time that you meet them. Like,
shout out to my first mother-in-law, though. She was really a wonderful person. So I just want to give her a shout out.
Great.
You know who you are.
You know who you are, and we know who you are. But like, yeah, I think that my understanding of it is that they become new versions of themselves. Like you are single person, then you are married person, no kids, and then you're married person with kids, and then you become teenagers, adult children. Now they're out of the house. Now you refine it. Like there's so many different versions of this person that you relearn and whatever. And of course, their interests are going to change. Of course, what they want to do is going to change. And I even think about myself, like with my business, I'm trying to finagle it in a way and have strategy associated to it. That way, no matter what happens, I have some flexibility, right? And we'll get into that. But I have specifically made an effort to make sure that whatever the future holds for me, I have some flexibility, and I don't have to feel like I have to pick or I have to choose, or I don't want to have to feel like that, because that's hard. That would be really hard.
It is. My entire life, it's been really important to me to know that my partner on this journey supports me. You don't have to agree with everything, but you have to have my back. You have to support me.
Yeah, like you don't have to like it.
And we're not, and we have not always liked the choices that each other has made, but at the end of the day, we are each other's biggest cheerleaders. I thought Steve was going to, I tell people that when I told him I quit my job at Hershey and was going to start my business, that poor guy really needed a 3-year plan. He wanted to have everything all mapped out. And I just nodded and was like, and then I called him a couple weeks later and I was like, I quit. Like, we're done. I'm out of here. Yeah. I'm doing this 3-year plan stuff.
Yeah.
And I thought he was going to need an AED machine. But he was like, okay. And he was right there with me, referred my very first client to me.
Well, I think there's like a trust element to that, right? Because I literally just have gone through an experience that, I don't know, it's very interesting, but it's almost like anti that like he too wanted like a plan from me. He's like, what's your 5-year plan? What's your, with your business? Because I want to know. And to me, I'm like, I have no idea.
I don't even know.
Like I could create a plan and life can occur. Something can happen and the whole plan's wiped. And he wanted a plan from me. He wanted a plan. And I go, I do not have a crystal ball. I could tell you the plan that I would go for if it was single Kristen. I knew I wasn't going to get married and I wasn't going to have any children. That's a clearer plan for me than it is a married and mom plan because there's so many more variables and I have to think about other people other than myself. I said, but
and this
still,
is, to be clear, this is not a spouse. This is not
No,
someone
this is
you
a
have any
boyfriend.
financial obligation to.
Yeah.
This is someone you were dating.
this is someone that I'm dating wants this from me. And I'm like, okay, I can't give that to you. And then there's this dishonesty piece that comes from it. That's like, okay, well, you're not telling the truth of what you, and it's like, you just
No.
don't understand business. You don't understand how life works. Like, I mean, things don't happen. And so it was just really interesting. And it was hard to navigate that. It was like at one period of time, you knew when you met me what I did. I'm not difficult to find online. You literally did find me online. Like, I'm not difficult to find. And then now something occurred and now we're insecure. That part is the part that's fascinating.
What it was? Do you remember? Is there a particular moment that you felt a shift in something?
Well, so apparently it was something I said. And if I can pinpoint it, I think what it was when I was talking about how is any of this even like realistic? Like, from a timeline perspective of like, how do you recognize how much I would have to pivot and whatever? Because like he was in a certain area and like I'm someone that I'm very intentional. Like I bring a lot to the table with me. So it's like that's a lot of variables that I need to consider and things that I think about. And we kind of got into that conversation about like, what does that realistically really look like? Like, you want to be where you are. And I am where I am. My book of business is, here, and I have my employees and different things, whatever. Like, I'm willing to not be here. I'm willing to not be in this area. But what does that look like? And do you recognize how big that is to do that? I think that's what it was. And I think in that moment, I think what I did is I made him very insecure because he couldn't provide me security to make me feel confident in making that decision or even being like able to project that. Like, he was not in a place
to be a provider
in any way.
There's a lot of research out there right now about how women, and especially women your age, who are looking for and to put it into gender specific categories, women seeking male partners, that there's so much discussion and research about seeking someone at or above the same financial
threshold
level
that you're at. Yeah.
Yes. And because of what has happened over the last 10 to 20 years with women and men in the workforce, it's harder and harder for younger women to find that.
Yes. I have yet, I feel like, other than one person, I think, met someone that's even at the same and I'm not really salaried because obviously I own the business, but like, I can't even find that. So my perspectives are changing on exactly what I am when it comes to providing. What I want is different now. Like, mine is not like, okay, I want you to provide for me financially. Sure, that's great. Would I love to not have to be, I don't want to have to be the one that's making all of the money, but I think of more provide physical safety for me. My body is not going to provide physical safety like a man would. I would love to have, in the craziness of everything that I have going on, be stable and consistent. Provide that for me. Because a business ownership is like a freaking roller coaster and waves, and especially,
Yes. I call Steve my steady Eddie.
Yes.
He's incredibly predictable. He's been predictable his entire life and career.
Yeah.
He's stable, steady Eddie.
And that is something that I am seeking.
Which gives me the flexibility
to be crazy.
To try things out. Now, that there are certain thresholds, right? Like, I don't have because I have my own standard of I have to be self-sufficient and independent no matter what. I'm not relying on steady Eddie to take care of me, kind of thing. So I have my own motivations.
Yeah.
That run deep. But it is one of the things that gave me the ability to up and quit on a moment's notice.
Yeah.
We had savings. I knew Steve could pay bills.
It was logical. Like, it wasn't just an emotional decision.
Like
you're making a logical decision.
I wasn't running off like a, on a whim kind of thing. Even though that's how you felt, Steve, it's okay. So
This woman just showed up at work and was like, I'm done.
Totally.
I'm out of here.
But I get it. I've been there.
So yes, and there. Look, and even over the course of the lawyer jobs I had with Steve, we went through different phases where he was the primary caregiver. I was the primary caregiver. I quit my job and stayed home for 2 years with the babies.
Yeah.
To take care of the baby, to have another baby.
And did you decide that together, or did he decide that for you?
Oh, no. I decided it for us, basically. I said,
But what did that conversation look like?
Well, let's see. Every day from work when I came home crying when Marina was a baby, and we had a really wonderful nanny who is part of our family to this day.
Yeah.
She's awesome. And she was coming to our house to take care of Marina. And I was just so sad. I didn't want to be at work at that time. It was so stressful. And so I said, Steve, I really don't want to do this anymore. And we just put a down payment on a lot to build
So you
a
had
house.
some financial stress too. Okay.
And he said, okay, so let's talk about what that means if this is what we think is best. And
So good.
And it was, okay, if we do this, we shouldn't move forward with the lot. We might lose a $5,000 deposit. I said, I'm okay with that. Are you? Yep. And so it really was a discussion around, okay, we can do this.
What are our
we'll
options?
stay in
Yeah.
we'll stay in our townhouse for however long. And we did it. And it was you know what, we can cancel the country club membership for now. There were certain things we decided weren't as important to us as the choices we needed to make for our family unit at that time. And things that might seem so important to some people at any particular time did not. All that mattered to us was now. It was super great for a little while. So stayed home, took care of Marina, had another baby.
And you didn't work at all. You did not work at all. Okay.
I started when I first quit. I started out as a contract attorney working from home a certain number of hours and realized I was just getting paid to do the same work for like $2 an hour.
Yeah.
Basically, and said this is ridiculous, and I quit all of it.
Yeah.
Had another baby, and then realized being a stay-at-home mom was not for me. I described myself as homicidal and suicidal. I really loved my work. I missed my work, and I wanted to get back to work.
Yeah.
And I knew, and that's when I knew the conversation shifted to it is best for all of us and best for the girls if I go back to work. And so let's figure out how we make that. And then it became, okay, let's figure out how we make that work.
Yeah.
And so we did.
Can I
And-
say something about that?
Yeah.
That's from my dating experience. That seems so far-fetched that is even a thing that men do.
Say more about that.
I'm gonna get emotional. I've never cried on the podcast. We gotta cut this part out.
No cutting. No cutting.
Like, I genuinely believe, and not believe, like, my experience has been I'm the shiny object that's like a moth to a flame. And then they say a whole bunch of stuff. They get you because you believe that stuff. Because, of course, why would you not? And then it's almost like a moon. Like, I'm trying to think of something that like slowly shapeshifts. Like, I'm thinking of like a moon almost. And it's over a period of time. Then it's just like you start hearing comments, and then you start seeing things, and then you start. At one point, you were my biggest cheerleader, and now, that doesn't sound super helpful or productive.
So
or
they reeled you in.
Correct. And then it's this pivot. And then it's I'm too successful. I'm now, at one point I was confident, now I'm arrogant. At one point I support everything that you want to do and every dream that you have. Now you have too many dreams.
Unless or
now
until
you're not
it
a
interferes
variable.
with what I want to do.
Correct. You I love that you are assertive and you stand up for yourself and you speak your own until you do it to me. And it's like this, and this has been this theme that I just have experienced again and again and again, that it's like, I know that people like that exist in my brain because I see people like Steve or my own dad or other people. I know that these people exist, but I just am really struggling to believe, and maybe it's I don't know what it is, that there are men out there still that are in my generation that believe that. And because then there's like the flip side of the people that I've also experienced that like they really love the fact that, oh, she makes a lot of money, I don't have to work. Oh, she does it. Oh, I could be a stay-at-home dad. And it's like, I don't really want that either. Now, could that be an option? Absolutely, that could be an option. But I don't want you to think this is like some meal ticket and you've got some sugar mama that's just gonna pay for your whole life and you just stop work. It's like, I feel like I've either got that version or this version. So like when I hear that, I'm like, that is amazing. That is what my parents did. My parents did the exact same thing. Like they were both engineers. My mom had a very fruitful career. She made great money. She's very smart. She was a mechanical engineer, and they had the exact same conversation. And they're like, what are we going to do with these kids? Because we don't want someone else raising our children. What are we going to do? And it was a we conversation. And I feel like I'm coming with that, but I'm struggling to, the other half that has to be a part of that is, again, going back to, the best word I can think of is just insecure. It's like, I don't know.
What if
What if
I reframe this
Great.
as maybe, what if you haven't, what if there's a certain type of person you have found yourself attracted to and a certain type that you go for, and it's time to shift to the type?
Perhaps. Yes, I agree.
And I say this because I know you.
Yeah, you know me
And I
personally.
am familiar with
The type.
some of the people you have dated a little bit. And no, and there's definitely a theme.
Agreed.
And so this is kind of like you keep doing the same thing over and over again
Yeah.
and expecting a different result.
I know.
And we could translate that across so many aspects of life, right?
Yep.
Now, and I don't want to paint the picture of Steve and I have like this idyllic relationship, because those don't exist either.
Mm-hmm.
But what we committed to do and what we've done really well is work. I mean, marriage is like a business partnership and a romantic, emotional thing.
Yeah.
And you have got to communicate. You have to be really clear. And when things are out of agreement or out of alignment, you have to renegotiate the terms and conditions of what this arrangement is and everything. And we weren't always good at that.
Yeah.
But I mean, therapy is amazing.
Love it.
Weekly. I can't imagine being in any other situation. And fortunately, he listens when I say, this doesn't work for me. I don't think he's ever had to say that to me, but that's okay. No, he certainly has.
Yeah.
And, so I think,
Yes.
that,
It
consider.
could be the outcome of,
Consider get past the initial physical attraction and consider who you find yourself. I wish you all could see the eyes.
They will. We video record this as well.
But are you videoing
No, Carol
our
in the back.
producer?
She's giving me
Carolyn
side eyes.
over
No,
in the back?
you have a really great point, and this is something that I am reflecting on as you're
People
talking.
do this at work too. It's the
Oh,
same
for
thing.
sure. Oh, for sure.
It happens at work too. We
Well,
show
and
up
yes.
day after day working with people who we know are
Have a
not
certain
bringing
level
out the
of-
best in us. We know they're and we're like, why do we keep working for these people day after
know.
day?
Well, and I think for me, with this certain type of group because I hear what you're saying about the physical, they all typically look the same. Now, is that initially what we're going for? It
We
just
can
kind of
have a
naturally.
type,
We can have a
sure.
type. But I think it's like the fact that I am so into very traditionally type of setups, but also am this very career-oriented woman, that balance is very challenging. Because I also don't want to be the person that's like, hey, I want you to be barefoot and pregnant. Bless you, Carol.
Bless you.
Don't want you to be barefoot and pregnant and not have any, responsibilities outside the home. But then I'm on the other side, I'm like, I want to do all of my dreams and careers and aspirations and everything that I want to accomplish, but I do also love that. So it's like trying to like eat is
I hear
hard.
you saying you don't want to be pigeonholed or stuck with any mandatory preordained path. What you want is a partnership where there is flexibility and opportunities for both of you to ebb and flow and give and take.
Yes.
And so that requires a very specific kind of
Dynamic.
a specific dynamic,
Specific
a
person.
partner who's at a certain place in their life and wants the same things.
Yeah. And that they're confident. I think that's the other thing too, is that they're confident in their ability. Because I'm very confident in my ability. I know you are too, because we've talked about this with like traveling and like getting yourselves out of a bad situation.
Yep.
I am very confident in my ability to pivot. And I'm very confident in my ability to problem solve. And I'm confident in my ability to like do teamwork. I'm confident in that. So finding someone else who is also confident in their ability that like a problem is in front of us, how are we going to solve the problem? Something has completely sideswiped our entire plan. How are we going to solve this problem? And I know that people out there exist like that, but it's just that's the characteristics that I would love. Yeah. Let's talk about, I would be curious.
Yeah.
Because I think, well, a major thing that I'm passionate about with this podcast is like for people listening, for them to be like, I appreciate that feedback or that tip or that whatever. Do you feel as though looking back, prior to your first marriage, what red flags and warning signs did you see and ignore after being able to reflect? Like, so if there's somebody else who's listening to this that's just like, I am currently engaged to that type of person and that's not the life that I want, or I'm in a relationship with somebody or anything like that. Because I have like a couple that I know that have been consistent that when I hear something, I literally have like a visceral reaction to someone saying something that I'm like, I know what that means. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, look, I did not have the self-esteem at 21, which is how old I was at 21, that I had even at 27. There's a lot of change that happens in your 20s. And I mean, there are so many things, from the obvious of when I was 20 and we were dating. He was older. He was like 5 years older than I was. And he went out to the bars with his friend and left me home to babysit his friend's child, and came back, and he and his friend were really drunk, a female friend, and he and his female friend were really drunk, and he sort of started like undressing her in front of me. That's what I would call a giant red flag, flashing neon sign. And I was just like, oh.
Yeah, I would say that's bigger than a red flag.
Yeah. Well, I kind of let that go.
Did you ever address it or bring it up, or did you not even have the confidence to do that? Did you just kind of take it?
I brought it up, but in a very passive-aggressive... those were my passive-aggressive, insecure, I would rather be with him than be alone days. And I'm really grateful for the experience, because
for sure.
I learned a
same.
ton.
There's probably men that I've dated in the past that are listening to this podcast. Still thankful. I'm thankful for what I've learned and what I've experienced. Yeah. Did some of it hurt? Sure.
I learned a lot.
We learned a lot.
And you know what? That experience also has made me a really good mother of girls who are dating.
Ugh.
It has.
That's what I'm...
It's amazing.
Hopeful for. Yeah, I'll be able
I'm
to help.
so proud of my daughters. And it's given me the ability to have honest and real conversations with them about relationships. So I'm really grateful that I had this. And look, and I did some really dumb things too. So it's not just all. I mean,
Absolutely.
I have
I
made
contributed.
horrible decisions over the course of my dating and married years. Like, I've done some dumb stuff. And all I can say is I judge not by the things that people do wrong. I judge by what we do in the wake of those mistakes. How do we hold ourselves accountable? How do we own up to our mistakes? How do we try to make things right? How do we not repeat the same bad behaviors over and over again? That's the stuff that matters to me. And that's the stuff I know I can look in the mirror and say, you've done okay. You're not perfect. You have messed up some stuff, but you have done pretty darn well when it comes to accountability, ownership. I'm not sure I can say that about people I've been in relationships with in the past.
Or just reflection. Yeah. Like, I know for me, some red flags that I've seen is, I'll give one. Like, don't date an attractive woman if you are insecure in the fact that other men are going to look at your woman. It does not matter what she's wearing. It doesn't matter how she's acting or what she's doing. Just by existing, you are dating and in relationship with a beautiful woman. Period, the end. You need to know what comes along with that. But you should also trust the character of the person that you're with, if they have good character. Trust the character of the person that you're with, that it's like they carry themselves in a certain way. But that's a huge one for me. Like, there's been comments in the past that it'll be like, and I had one recently, like I was on a business trip and I remember being like, oh, we didn't really make reservations. I just casually mentioned like, oh, we didn't make reservations, so we'll probably just try to find like a bar spot somewhere. And the response and feedback was like, oh, I'm sure the guys love that. I'm sure the guys will love that. And I'm like, what? I'm sitting at a bar. Like, everywhere I exist, there are men. Everywhere that I exist, there are men.
My entire legal career, most of my clients were men.
Yeah, most of my clients now are men. It's like, when we have to be what we are, we carry ourselves differently and we think about things differently, and we are beyond equipped to navigate a man.
I will say I was not equipped in the beginning.
Sure. Same. No, I would agree with that.
Because of the fear of losing a client, fear of getting in trouble, fear of
being fired,
just
losing a job.
I mean, just so afraid of so many things. And it is tough to be a woman in a professional services or sales industry because of the behaviors that are tolerated.
Yeah.
From stacks of Playboy magazines in a partner's office to whatever that.
You look a lot prettier than the other guy that I met with this morning.
It's tough. And
you've got a nice handshake, as we were talking about before.
Oh,
that's nice, a handshake.
Yeah, what is this obsession with being shocked and surprised by the
skill of a woman?
The skill of a woman to have a good handshake. No, but these are things that my daughters are experiencing now, that they're hearing, oh, that's a good handshake. No.
It's just a handshake.
It's people shake hands.
And some people have a dead fish, and some people have good handshakes.
Yeah.
But it's like the highlighted,
Why are we shocked when a young professional woman has a good handshake? That we have to call it out? Nope. I will tell you, when I'm in a space and place where it is patently obvious what's happening and no one is saying anything, I will be the one, and I know you are too, I will be the one to just call it out.
Or like, does anybody see this? Like, are you asleep? But I
Yeah.
just don't, how are you okay? I'm not someone, I've never been someone that's okay just being a bystander.
No,
like,
I'm not.
I've never been okay just being a bystander to anything. Like, I even remember in high school,
No.
I was
Yep.
the bully of the bullies. Like, if I saw a bully
Same.
bullying
I
somebody
was
else,
too.
I was going to bully the
I
bully.
was too,
Like,
and I befriended the people being bullied.
yes,
because
I'm like, get over here.
Yes.
I will be, and I like took that on at a very young age that I was like, you don't have a voice? Great, we'll use mine. You don't have the strength? Great, we'll use mine. And now it's kind of, caused me some bit of energy draining in my older years, but we've learned. But I took on other people's like inability to stand up for themselves or, speak up for themselves or whatever. I took that on and I was like, I'm not scared to say something. I will say something. I will do something.
Well, look, part of it is that it's my job.
Yeah.
It is my job to be the one who's asking the hard questions and pushing the envelope. And I'm not paid to be nice. I'm
Yeah.
paid to have the hard conversations.
Well,
and
I feel
to
like
kind of be that.
Yeah.
And also, especially when I'm doing teamwork, and the dynamic is really obvious. We all know, we've been in team meetings. We know it. I'm really curious about what causes the silence. And so if I say something, if I jump in, because I have finally had enough of the silence, and so I jump in and I say what I know people are thinking or what needs to be said. Now, I don't always say it the most gracefully.
Yeah,
So there are
eloquent.
times when I've had to been like, I didn't say that. The what was good, how I did it, not good. I also call that out in real time because that's leadership.
human.
That's
Well,
leadership.
Yes,
It's
and
human
that's being
behavior
a
and
human.
it's leadership to say, hey, this was good, this wasn't.
And the leader can mess up,
Um,
but own it.
I then reflect on, did anyone come into the space in that particular time, right? Like who had something to add on or challenge or anything in that period of time? Sometimes it's just still complete silence. And then I have to reflect on, okay, now what? And then sometimes people come up to me after to kind of like high five or this or that. And I'm like, where were you in the meeting?
Yeah.
Your colleagues need you.
Oh, yes. It's like that
That stuff
sidebar
is hard.
after the fact.
I know, like
Yeah.
I wish, and this all comes from a good place because I really, really care a lot about all the people I work with. And
Yeah.
I wish I could part of me wants to hug everyone and part of me wants to like shake and baby shake everyone. And be like, come on, let's go. Like,
Literally, yes.
there's so much we
yes.
can do.
Oh, I'd want to shake people and be like, what you're doing doesn't make any sense.
Yeah, and it's, look, these are the fine lines we walk and navigate as coaches, but it's fun.
We have some questions. I think this would be great. The importance of men seeing their partner's achievements as a shared victory rather than a personal threat.
Yeah.
Let's unpack that.
Okay. It was weird for me I had to overcome stuff from my first marriage when I heard things like, you're putting us into debt and I don't like that you're going to make more money than I make. And my perspective on it really was, I'm investing in our future. Who cares about who makes how much money? It's our money. And then in my current marriage of over 20 years, there have been times when I made more money, times when Steve made more money, and it's
like
never
the
been
team is making more money. The team is making more money.
It's just always been money. It's not his and hers. I will tell you.
Where do you think that comes from, though?
Well, I think there are certain things that people can do in relationships that make it, that help make the whole money thing not about money. So for example, Steve and I have a joint account, and we have a joint checking and a joint savings, and then we each have individual separate checking and savings accounts. So he has his, I have mine, we have ours.
So you have personal,
Yep.
separate,
Personal separates.
and okay, because you
and
would
we have
naturally have to
joints.
for your businesses.
Oh, business is a whole.
Yeah, because then you have a whole other.
my business account is a whole other account. My business is my business, and then I have a personal checking savings. Steve has a personal check, and we have a joint. The paychecks. When I had direct deposit when I was working for a company, and Steve has direct deposit, went into joint checking, and from there it was we collectively pay bills. We collectively put money into 529 plans, for example, for the kids. We collectively agreed on how much goes into whatever investments or savings. And we collectively agreed that we each send to our separate savings or our separate personal accounts how much money we get each month. And that is our no questions asked. You don't get to know what I do with that money. It's mine, and it's our whatever we want to do. Some of it is budgeted, like factoring in how much money do we need for gas, how much money did we need for student loans.
So some of it's like functional.
Some of it is
it's very
functional, but the rest of it was, I get to do whatever I want. If I want to go shopping with this money, if I want to go out to dinner 15 times with my friends, whatever I want to do, like, it's mine, bug off. And that ability to say, like, we have an agreed upon number that goes into those accounts for each of us, and we don't get to tell each other what we do with that money. That's our fun money.
Yeah.
But we have budgets, we have accounts that we set money aside for the joint expenses of our family.
Yeah.
Taxes, insurance, car, like all that, whatever it is, mortgage. Yeah. And so, like, we have purpose and the investments and all that stuff that we do. I think it's important to have some financial space too.
Yeah. Well, because I have always typically agreed about the joint part. But then there's always that question about, like, what if I want to buy you a surprise? I can't. You'll see it. You'll know. And I love a gift. I love gifting. So it's like, you'll know the second that it comes out of the bank account or the second I swipe the credit card.
Well, so we have a joint credit card.
Okay.
I have a credit card. He has a credit card. But we're pretty transparency.
Yeah.
What you want to make sure is that no one's putting your family into some stupid debt.
Yeah.
Right.
But that's like a character thing though, right? Like, cause that's getting into character at that point, that it's like, that's not about money at a certain point. That's about character. So it's like, okay, you can navigate having your own bank accounts and your own money and whatever. And it's like, oh, well, I don't know if I'm going to be able to trust the person with their own money. That's a character problem, not a money problem.
So in the beginning, we only ever had one joint credit card, and that was very purposeful because I was terrible with credit cards when I was in my 20s. Like, terrible. And so for the first, 10 years of our marriage, we had one joint credit card.
Yeah, because you weren't allowed.
I did not.
You're like, I just don't
clear,
let me.
It's not that I wasn't allowed.
No, you didn't allow yourself. You're like, I can't have one.
This is a boundary that I need because I don't.
I'm a danger.
I don't trust myself.
I'm a liability.
I need to be. Yes.
So, liability with a credit card.
So what we would do is that I would say, I'm gonna go. It's like gift time or whatever, or there's a surprise or something. So in the early stages of our relationship, first it was we have an X dollar spending threshold before we have to have a conversation with each other about it. So you agree on what, is it $100? Is it $1,000? Whatever it is.
Yeah.
But then it would be, hey, because Steve is, bless his heart, he's anal retentive. He goes online and checks the credit card stuff all the time. And I would have to say, don't go online. Wait for the statement to come because I'm going to buy something. If you go online, you're going to see it. You're going to see. So promise me you're not going to go out. And he would be like, okay. I never went online because I didn't care.
Yeah.
So I would have to say, please don't go online. And he would say, okay. Now it's not an issue because I'm a grown up now, but it took me a little while to get there. And running my own business really helped.
Yeah. I love that.
I mean, actually running my business. He wanted to be the CFO of my business. And I was like, no.
I don't know if and it doesn't matter, but I don't know that we answered the question that I asked.
Oh, what was the question?
That's what I mean.
And this podcast brought to you.
Is sponsored by. I don't think that
What was
said
the
the
question?
importance of men seeing their partner's achievements as a shared victory rather than a personal threat. We literally didn't even touch it.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Well, here's.
Yeah,
Okay, so
let's
here's.
talk about it.
I mean,
I was like, I think that was great,
no.
but I don't know where we got that from.
Okay, so the
Wine Club.
funny thing is that Steve, when I started practicing law, Steve had been an attorney for 10 years already.
Yeah.
I learned a lot from watching.
Because there's a bit of an
him.
age gap between you guys.
Yeah, so we're 9 years apart.
Yeah. Okay.
I learned a lot from him, and I learned really early on that for lawyers and professional services people, you're as valuable to a law firm as the value of your book of business.
Mm-hmm.
And that if you really want to own your career and be able to have influence, you have to have a good book of business.
Yes, I learned that early too.
And I got out there very early and was really into networking and marketing and being in my community and everything.
Yeah, you branded yourself.
So when Steve and I would go places together, people would come up to me and say, "Oh, you're Claudia's husband." When Steve would go places by himself and he would say, "Oh, Steve Williams or whatever," and they would say, "Oh, you're Claudia's husband." And he would come home and
how would
tell
he
me these
navigate that?
stories,
Yeah.
and he would kind of like just chuckle about it. And one time he said to me, "I've been doing this 10 years longer than you. How is it that you
I've made more of an impression and impact.
known
Yeah.
in this community than I am?" And I was like, "Because I worked really hard at it." And I said, "How do you feel about being Claudia's husband?" He's like, "You're obviously pretty great, so that's cool." And I said, "Well,
You're obviously pretty great. I would literally crumble. That's so sweet.
okay,
That's going back to the thing before.
okay." Now the human part of there's still some envy in there too, right? Look, he's human,
Sure.
and there's a little bit.
He's like, what the heck? I've been doing this 10 years longer.
There's
Yeah,
a little
sure.
bit of when am I going to be Steve and I'm not going to be Claudia's husband?
Did he ever say that?
He,
Or do you just are you assuming that?
he didn't say that in so many words.
Sure.
He didn't say that specifically,
Yeah.
right? But I feel like we went on this evolutionary journey, and when he became the managing partner of his firm, I was like, guess what? You're not Claudia's husband. You're Steve Williams, the managing partner of Cohen Saglias. I get to go be Steve's wife at all these things. Like, you did this, so I'm your wife.
He probably loved that.
And I had my moment, I had
Yeah.
my time, and he gets to have his time, and that's what I think. There are these.
Everybody has their time.
Yeah, it
Yeah.
isn't about someone outshining anybody else.
No.
It's about being in those moments with each other.
Well, and you can't
Celebrating
do it.
it.
Yeah, and you can't do it without the team. Like, that is something that I think about all the time, that, like, I'm like, yeah, could I have no employees? Could I do it by myself? Sure. But is it a hell of a lot better with the team? Yes.
Yeah.
It's a hell of a lot better with the freaking team. And that's how I think of it, is like, even though I'm on the stage, do you know how much has to happen to get that person up on the stage? Do you know how much has to happen for that person to be able to show up, and like your thing that you've got in a bit, that you're traveling out for like those 24 hours and you're doing a workshop, like, do you know how much it takes to be able to get there and be there on time and healthy and mentally stable to navigate that and to be able to have your thing prepped? Like, the team has to make that happen. You can't do that by yourself.
Yeah. And look, in a household with kids is like running a business in and of itself.
Yeah.
And so Steve and I
appreciate that you keep saying that because I've used that before and that makes me feel like I'm on track.
it is because I, like you said, we made the decision that we didn't want other people raising our kids either. We wanted to be there.
Yeah.
And when I looked around Hershey, for example, and I saw people at my level in the organization, they had stay-at-home partners or they had full-time nannies or things. And that's great because that worked for them. It isn't what I wanted for me.
Yeah.
And it's part of what led me ultimately to quit my job. But what Steve and I lived and died by our Outlook calendars. And so we would schedule who had drop-off duty, who had pickup duty, and we had a rule: first in time to the calendar wins. So if you had a client function or a work thing, you got to put it on the calendar so we know, like,
That's
it's
happening.
my responsibility. I'm responsible for the kids this time. And then there was the occasional, like, okay, we both have something. Let's talk about which one might be more important at this particular time and why. And we would have to, like, hash it out. But otherwise, first in time won. And the other person, if you had something at the same time, it's fine, but you were responsible for ensuring the kids were covered.
Yeah.
And so that was the rule. And
So you're like, hey, you're in charge of babysitter because Claudia already has something in the calendar.
And this is why I say it's like running
oh my
a business.
gosh.
System
What a literal... You
and
need
process.
a handbook.
System
You
and
need a
process
handbook.
for everything.
I'd buy it.
And it just eliminated arguing, and it eliminated the whole, what I have is more important than what you have.
Because that's not what it is. That's
not.
not what it's about.
we're
It's that
both-
there's only so many resources.
Exactly.
There's only so much time. There's only so many resources. It's not emotional. There's only two of us. Right once you have more than two children, you're outnumbered.
Yes.
So it's like, how are we going to be three places at once? There's only two of us. It's not emotional. It is literally just resources. We only have so many resources. How are we going to do this?
Yeah.
That's it.
And there are transitions at every stage. So I stayed home for a couple of years, right? Oh, then I went back to work. And we went through the phase of, hey, wait, I'm back at work, but I feel like I'm still the administrator of the house. I don't want that job all by myself anymore. So stop asking me if it's bath night or shower night. Pay attention. And all of a sudden he was like, oh, yeah. Okay, so,
Yeah, no.
not my job.
You're like, I don't want that
I'm
anymore.
I'm not the CEO of the house anymore. We're like co-CEOs now. And so you go through all these transitions. The key is about partnership. And I will say, this is something I learned from my dad and my mom, who championed this about my dad from the beginning, which was, and especially back in those days, my dad changed diapers from day one. My dad was very in tune with what was happening with us kids, and he was part of it all along the way. It was very important to him. And so I learned that, and I expected that from and I wouldn't settle for anything. I never had, it was never a question with Steve, but I wouldn't settle for anything different than that.
I'm so glad that we did this podcast because I feel like my heart needed it, because it has shown me that there is not one man that I have ever dated that would ever have given me that.
It's time to go fishing in a new pond.
Time to go fishing in a new pond for different types of fish.
Yeah.
Because, like, there is not one man that would have been able to give me that, because that's what I want. And I want someone who wants that. Not one would have been able to give me that. Not one would have been able to, like, figure out that schedule, because I would have had to come up with it. But also be open to it. And, like, yes. Period, the end. Love that. We've kind of already talked about that. Encouraging. This could be a good one.
Okay.
We're talking to our male counterparts here, okay?
Okay.
The men that maybe are listening, because men listen to this as well. Men are listening to
Maybe
this.
not after today.
You're done. But no, encouraging men to work on self-awareness and self-esteem to build healthier relationships with successful women.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. Part of me's like, screw you, figure it out. But we're not doing that. We're being helpful.
So
Maybe they're in
and
love with
look,
a woman. They're in love with a woman.
I'm even thinking about
is.
it from a professional context too, because
Sure, that's even good. Yeah, yeah. You feel a bit threatened by someone. There's a new woman in town.
For all the women out there who feel like they have been like taken out by a male colleague, or that you know when you've had a male colleague or someone who's felt threatened by you and they have thwarted your success. They've blocked you.
Yeah.
Yes.
I've experienced this.
You know when you have been blocked. And listen, girls, you are not off the hook, because we are each other's worst enemy. So I want to put this out there that this isn't just a
man.
We're talking
thing.
about this in the context of a male-female dynamic, but women can be each other's worst enemies. So I want to put that out there too. I am sensitive to the male-female dynamic because I experienced
it very deeply, yeah.
And I still experience it in this role, because I coach successful men who have successful men on their teams. So I know when I am perceived as a threat to the male executives who report to the presidents and CEOs I work with. I still experience it.
I have had very healthy men that I've worked for, and then I got this was a great experience. I worked at a recruiting company, and I had a really healthy guy, a man that I was working for, and then he ended up moving on and going to another. He didn't die, but he when I say moving on, he ended up going. So he passed. No, he ended up going somewhere else, and then a woman came into play, and she was like freaking. I just felt like she was out to get me. I literally felt like she was out to freaking get me, and. Then there's part of that you're like, okay, is it me? Am I being too sensitive? Am I just being the victim of this? Whatever. But it's I know I genuinely felt like she was freaking out to get me. So I appreciate that you did bring that up, because I think that is really, really important. We're talking a lot about the male and female dynamic here, but women are also horrible. But so maybe let's give some encouragement to the men about self-awareness and self-esteem to build healthy relationships, successful women.
The single most important thing I can say is that if or when a woman describes an experience or calls something out as being sexist or appearing as demeaning or harassing in some way, don't tell her it isn't.
And don't double down on it either.
Just don't say it isn't so. You can say, I never thought of it that way. I didn't see it that way, or
Interesting perspective. Tell me more about that.
But don't say it isn't so. Because you're not the one experiencing it. You're not the one who's experienced it. By the way, did I mention I'm 50? You're not the one who's been experiencing it.
Yeah. So are we a little bit sensitive? Truthfully. Are we a little sensitive, and could we get it wrong? Okay. Absolutely. But you know how many times we got it right and we didn't say anything?
Yeah.
How many times we got it right and we didn't say anything? And so, yeah, maybe one time I overreact a little bit and I might say, oh, this is because I'm a girl. And I might be wrong that one time, but that's because 9 times I wasn't right and I didn't say anything. And so, that's my soapbox.
And so when that happens, you can say, I can see this is really upsetting for you. I can see how upset you are by this. I feel how upsetting this is.
Yeah. Yeah.
Just acknowledge the emotion, but don't say it isn't so. Don't say it didn't happen. Don't try to make them feel like they're crazy or it's not happening. Yeah. Because I'm telling you, there's a reason why we perceive the things we are perceiving.
Yes.
If you're curious and you want to explore it more, then get curious about it. But stop, and by curiosity, I mean really listening.
Yeah.
Stop throwing data.
Well, do you think it's because of this, or do you think maybe it's
don't
because
be like,
of that?
she's just a poor performer and all that. No.
Yeah.
The stuff that is you have to be willing to listen to the experience and let go of defending or trying to undo what is happening.
Because it's not about that. It's not about that. Ever. It's not about that.
All right, so
Let's hear it.
yeah, I was an adjunct faculty member, and it was my third time teaching this master's level course. I had a student in the class, and it was readily apparent the student was struggling with whatever that student was struggling with, but this was a big guy. So what you can't see on the, what you can't tell from the video is that I'm about 5'6.5", 5'7". I weigh like 128 pounds. So like I'm not a huge, tall, muscular.
She could be thrown
woman,
around very easily.
right? So, and at the time, I probably had oh gosh, at the time of this, I weighed like 120 pounds because I just had surgery and I was like really
Very frail.
really frail.
Yeah.
This student was well over 6, was like 6'4", 6'5", big bulky guy. Came. And this is it was a once a week class from 6 to 9 p.m. in the winter, so it's dark out. And the student would come up to me after class a couple of times and started talking to me about his difficulty with relationships. Why can't I have a girlfriend? He would talk about weapons, and he really wanted to do ROTC, but he can't get weapons because of this, that, or the other thing. And it was clear to me that these were inappropriate conversations. Mm-hmm. To make a long story short, I reached out to administration. I reached out to the on-campus psychologist because I was concerned about this young man. And I was concerned for my safety. And so they basically made me feel like I was crazy. Oh, the psychologist, he's not going to do anything to you. I said, you know what? With all due respect, you're not the one in the room with him.
Yeah.
And he's having inappropriate conversations with me. He shouldn't be talking. I'm a stranger. He shouldn't be talking to me about his relationships. He shouldn't be talking to me about, and he's talking about guns. And this was right after the mass shooting at UVA. Mm-hmm. So the kid skipped class a couple of times. All right, so we're at class. Everybody leaves. I'm packing up my stuff to leave, and here he comes walking in. And he lives over an hour away. He didn't show up for class. Comes walking in, hoodie on, backs me into the classroom, pushes me up against the desk and says, "So you called the psychologist on me?" And I was like, "Uh-oh." And it was, I was terrified. It was like this 30-minute thing at the end of which he said, "I suppose I should let you go home to your family now." And I said, "I think that would be really good." Like it was, I can't even describe it all. After which, I called campus security, got escorted to my car. He got expelled from school. This is, when I'm brushing over what transpired, he got expelled. So now he knows, because of what happened. Now he knows where this class is, when it is, and everything. So I said, he
knows who you are, and like he know. Yeah,
I need you to move the location of the class to a different building.
Yeah.
And I would like campus security to escort me to and from my car. You're overreacting. I was like, you already told me I was overreacting. Now he's expelled. Now he's been expelled.
Don't tell me what I'm overreacting about. Unless you are sitting in that room with me and you experienced it yourself, don't tell me how I'm supposed to feel about this.
And this is part one. So that, and I said, look, so then they called, we moved your class 2 doors down. I said, in the same hall, in the same building. Any idiot could find us 2 doors down. Mm-hmm. So I said, I quit. Find someone else to teach the class. We're halfway through the semester. I said, find someone else. So the new man they got to teach the class called me. Can I get your teaching materials? Are you willing to share your materials with me? I said, did they tell you why I stopped teaching? He said, no. And I told him everything. Mm-hmm. One of the students called me the next week and said, Professor Williams, I want you to know they moved our class to a different building and we have a security guard outside our door. so that was part one. As I'm explaining to my then boss at my law firm everything that happened, and I am really upset about it, he goes, "You seem really emotional about this."
I am.
Yeah,
Correct.
I was. You know why? Because it was really scary. I was put in a very dangerous situation. And everyone just kept telling me that I was overreacting, and now you are too.
Well, how did you want me to react? Like, how do you want me to react? No big deal. What? Like,
Yeah.
how did you want me to react?
Right. So this is why when people say so and so seems really emotional, maybe we should just take a step back and say, what might be making this person respond emotionally or feel or react emotionally
In
right
such
now?
a way.
Yeah.
In such a way.
Let's just say, yep, we're emotional. There might be
Because
a
it was
reason.
emotional.
There might
It
be
was
a
a
reason.
scary circumstance.
Yeah.
And I remember bringing this up in the group that we had, that I like brought this up, that this was even a thing. And then I was like, hey, your employees have probably experienced some type of, I don't remember what language I used, but like from clients or from contractors. And they're like, what? They can receive, poor treatment from these. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm like thinking of all my own stories, and I feel like I almost have too many that I don't. But for some reason, I'm feeling like called to tell one, and it's short
Okay.
and it's quick. But
Oh,
it
that's
just,
good. Mine was long.
It's fine, but mine is like short and it's quick, and I think like it'll give enough. Is that I worked for a small family-owned company, and this whole place was absolutely sick. This place was sick, especially when you work for a small family-owned company and you're the only non-family member. The secrets.
Oh, that's hard.
I was 19. Okay? 19. First job, 8 hours away from everybody else in my home. The father of the company, I remember my desk faced the wall, and I was like working on whatever I was doing, social media, marketing, business development. That's what I've done since the beginning, small construction company. He comes up to me, and I'm just going to touch the back of your head. He grabbed my hair like this, and he kind of like pulled it a little bit, and he was like, you have the most beautiful hair.
Nope. This
This
is
is
the
the
dirty
owner.
dancing. This is my dance space.
This is the owner of the business. Grabbed the back of my head and my hair. Gave it a tug. You have the most beautiful hair. I'm 19 years old. This man is probably 50s, early 60s. How do you navigate that as a 19-year-old? If I say, who am I going to report that to?
Listen,
Who am I going to report that to? Who am I going to tell that happened? The boss? Oh, wait, it was the boss. Oh, wait, if I leave, I don't have a job. How do you help me understand, people of the world? How do you navigate that? That's one of hundreds of instances at that. And that was my first professional working experience, was at a place like that. That was my first place.
yeah, I got fired from my first job. The head pro at the golf club, I was a teenager. The head pro at the golf club was really good friends with my dad and told my dad that I wasn't doing a good job. And so my dad came home and lit into me. And I was like, hang on. They told me they let me go because I couldn't go into the men's locker room to clean the men's golf shoes and stuff. They hired a guy, and because they said I wasn't really interested in working in the golf shop. I said no. Every time there was a banquet, they told me to go work banquets.
Yeah.
And so I was working banquets and waiting tables, and I said I just did whatever they told me to do because that's what you do. When I said so. Then they hired this guy in the golf shop instead. And my father was like, oh. So then when he went back to go talk to the golf pro, and he said, hey, Larry, Claudia said that, she was told to go work the banquets, and that, you hired this other young man instead to work in the golf shop. And he was like, you know what? I don't want to talk to you anymore, Frank.
Of course not.
And so then my dad...
Of course you don't, Frank.
Then my dad came home and was like, I'm really sorry that I yelled at you. And I said, I wish you had just asked me what happened, because I did whatever they told me to do. And by the way, that's kind of who I've always been with a job. I do whatever they told me to do. You want me to work banquets? I'll go work banquets. You want me to work in the pro shop? I'll work in the pro shop. I'll do whatever you want me to do.
That's good for healthy people, but not when you're not working for healthy people. All right, let's talk about encouraging stories because that's
Okay.
what we said we were going to do.
All right.
I got one.
Okay.
Do we start?
Yeah.
So when I was working at a recruiting company, I had a boss. We're going to use real names because it's positive and it's great. His name was Greg.
Okay.
And I remember in my interview, I don't even know. I can't even remember for the life of me how we got onto the topic, but I told him this story of the first place that I worked at. And I've kind of hinted towards it. I've alluded towards it in like past podcast episodes. I will soon be brave enough to tell the true and real and full story of what happened. I will get there. And I'm excited to do that, but I'm also nervous to do that. But I know that it's good and I know that I need to. But I told him this story. And I remember him in my interview saying to me, you will never, some variation of, you will never experience that here. Know that I will make sure that that never happens to you again. And I believed him. And what was interesting was when you work at certain recruiting agencies, you usually have a discipline that you recruit in. And my discipline was construction and engineering, architecture, whatever. So there was a certain team that was already created because of that. It was a man, it was an older man and an older woman. Both of them were like one of the oldest people in the office. And they'd been here forever. And the guy that was running the team, he was in like the $1 Million Club. I mean, like this was the straight, like he was just a big dude. And he just would sit back in his chair and like he could just do whatever he wanted because he was in the $1 Million Club, right? Like this was the guy that I then went to work for. So they placed me on this team. And there was another woman who was also older that had been working with this man for however long. And it was like they kind of siloed themselves. And I remember at the time being like, cool, I'm with like the oldest team here. And like they do. Now, do I think that I was specifically purposely placed there?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Greg, I saw what you did, because they were like, she's going to tell us what's going on. You know what I mean? Like it was one of those, like I was a mole, like I was planted as a mole and I didn't recognize it at the time. Thank you for sacrificing me. I really appreciate it. But so I was placed onto this team and very quickly I'm like, you did this to me again. There would be closed door conversations and his wasn't like, he would have like inappropriate comments, but it wasn't like specific towards me. It was just everyone. Like it was just everybody was treated this way. But his was more, I would be in an office with him and it would be standing up and like yelling. Like it would be very like whatever word you want to call that. And so it wasn't like sexual inappropriateness that I'd like experienced in the past. This was very like assertive, aggressive, fearful based management. And I had experienced this and there was one time, and it had been happening for months. And there was one time that I walked out of his office and I was crying and I was hiding it. I was like, I don't remember if I was hiding my face. I don't remember but this one girl that also worked there saw it. There was one time she saw it and she called me into her office and she's like, come in here. And so I sat down and I blacked out. Like I couldn't even tell you what the conversation was that we had with each other, but she was like, tell me about this. And I told her everything. And she ended up going and talking to Greg and having the whole conversation. And I don't know what happened because I wasn't involved in that, but it was like, we need to do something about this. And it got to a point that like I literally had to be sent home. And my other coworker, the other older woman that worked with me, like she also had to be sent home for safety because they had to remove him as, the manager. And up until that point in my career, I was certain that no, like, yeah, okay, you're never going to let this happen again. Yeah, sure. You just want me to come work here. But the way that it felt as though, and this is kind of how I relate, like, my faith is important to me. Like, and this is how I relate and I think about how God works is that like, he just puts his wings over top of you. And he's like, let me just. I'm
not gonna lie, like I'm trying really, really hard to think of a positive story or someone who had my back in a professional situation when I was an employee. I had some good bosses.
Yeah, but somebody that went to
But
bat for you.
when I felt like I was experiencing something, I never had anyone. So, I don't feel like I ever had anyone. And
Never, not once.
there are now I was firmly in the camp of, can't say anything. I mean, it was pretty clear to me when when you're told you seem really emotional and stuff, like you can't,
Yeah.
you get the message. You get the message. I had a great, I did have a great experience in college. I had a TA, a teaching assistant in college, who started showing up at my dorm room and was like just weirdly talking to me about the problems in his marriage and all this stuff, unsolicited of anything, and it made me start to feel really weird. Yeah. And I was a teenager, and I went to my golf coach, Denise D, love you D, and I went to my golf coach and I was like, this is like really weird, and this is happening. He's doing, and she was
Jumped.
super, like, totally had my back and encouraged me to go to the professor, supported me 1,000%, and the TA ended up being removed. And it was, these cases of he said, she said, it was, I never would have known the stuff that was going on in his personal life had he not shared it with me. And I was never, I had all these witnesses of him coming to the girl floor on the dorm and stuff, showing up there and me being like, what? So I just happened to have what so many other people don't, which is witnesses.
Yeah.
And my golf coach had my back. But I don't feel like I really had bosses who had my back, men and women, because I complained to the one and only powerful female boss I had. I shared stuff with her. She didn't do anything. So,
Why do you think they don't do anything?
well, at the place where I had a female boss, I think people are, at the end of the day, they care about themselves. They care about their position. They care about the money. They care about then it becomes about disruption.
Yeah.
Because
Another thing to do.
I mean, the stuff was so blatant. And then as people were leaving that company and coming to me with their concerns about the same group of people, I mean, it was just, it's all so crazy when I think about it.
Yeah.
But no, I don't have a good, this person at the company had my back, other than like I had my groups of close people. But
That's
I don't feel
horrible.
like I ever had a boss who had
That's
my
really
back
sad.
in a situation.
I'm sorry for that.
I hope that I can reflect on this more and think about it and come up with something, but it should be easier.
It should be easier. I'm sorry for that. That's my big one.
That's really good.
That's
No
my
one has
big
ever
one.
said anything like that to me.
That was my big, and like I am thoroughly convinced that changed the trajectory of my career, because I truly believe if I stayed where I was and I had that like major chip on my shoulder, whatever you want to call it, that I was like, people are just out to get me. Like I had a completely different mindset. I was so hurt and so broken from all these past workplaces. that I was just like, I think if I stayed there, I don't think I ever would have became what I am now, because I would have never worked with any men.
I
Ever.
get that.
Ever. I don't think I ever would have worked with any man ever, because they were just so unsafe. They were so out to get you. They were so, I'm going to take this, I'm just going to steal things from you. I'm going to suck you dry of every energy ounce that you have. Like, that was just my perception of it all, until this
Because
man
of certain bad experiences.
Correct, because of
Yeah.
all these experiences that I had, and that's just like, and I always relate it to a
And sorry,
dog.
because we know there are lots of good ones.
Of
Like,
course there's
tons
good ones.
good
Of
ones.
course
The
there's
problem
good ones.
is-
My dad is a prime example, like, and how I hear, like, I literally, some of his past coworkers are our now clients, because of the great experience they have had with my dad. Like, there is this one woman that we work with right now that she literally says that my dad changed the trajectory of her career, because he like took her under his wing. And, so I know that they exist, but it's just so far and few between, I think. And I know that my situation was so different. But yeah, I do. I think about that a lot. I think about how differently he could have changed. Did you think of one?
You know what I'll say? I'll
Oh.
give a shout out to my Hampton Township Police Department,
Oh,
because when I had this situation when I was an adjunct faculty member, I was also serving as the attorney for the township, and I called to talk about. I called to say, look, I have a problem. I'm concerned about this particular individual, and a police officer there said, I was in class with that student. I understand why you're concerned.
oh, wow.
And they arranged it so that if I called 911, they would immediately dispatch to my home and not wait for any words to be said.
They showed up for you.
And they totally were there and ready to be there for me. So that was something like,
It's
you're
just
not
showing
a
up
crazy
for you.
person or
It's
anything.
just
They
showing
just-
up for you.
They were there for me when Steve and I were really scared for a solid 6 months when that all went
These
down.
people can be crazy town.
And my local peeps were like, we have your back. Don't
Ugh.
worry about it. We're here if you need
So
us. And they weren't like, you're so emotional and you're overreacting.
Ma'am,
No?
it's not really that big of a deal. Nothing's happened yet.
No
Or
big
that's my
deal.
favorite. Well, nothing's
Right.
really happened yet, and we can't help until something happens.
No, they were
Huh?
like, if we are here,
Huh?
yep.
We can't help until something happens. You can't help me until there's a knife. like what? You can't help me till there's someone's hands around my throat? Are you kidding
Yeah.
me? What do you mean?
Yep.
Wild. All right, I know how I want to end this.
Okay.
I want us to speak into the ladies. Just in how, like, what we would say. They're listening to this and they're going, I'm really reevaluating my workplace or my relationship or friendships even, because there's been times I've had friends that were not supportive of my dreams and the things that I've wanted to become. They're in that moment and they're listening to this going,
Is she talking about me?
is she talking about me? Is this me?
Wasn't me.
What would you tell her?
It's okay. I'm good. I'm good. That's what I would say. Really. The premise, the question presupposes that I would actually have a conversation with someone like that in the first place.
Oh, so you're talking about in regards to this person that's
That was a naysayer or something.
Yeah.
I'm questioning whether that person's even in my circle.
Yeah.
Probably not.
Yeah.
And I can tell you there's no one in my circle who has ever been a naysayer in my life.
Same, unless they're really good at faking it. Like, seriously, they're a real good actor. I mean, like, yeah. Same.
I surround myself with people I admire, people I can learn from, people who inspire me, people who love me, people I love, people who make me laugh, people who have similar goals and values and who are just goofy and fun and that's and it's when you talk about that you smile because you can't help it, you just smile when you think about the people who are in your circle. That's that's what it should be.
Yep. I would say, because it's where my heart is, what I would say to someone else in the dating scene.
Okay. Like I could have a conversation
Let's have
with my ex-husband.
Correct. Let's
Okay.
do that.
All right.
Like what I would tell this person, like say it was a friend or someone came to me and they were telling me about past situations that I've been in. And they're like, what do I do about that? Or like, what do I do about him? Or I think what I would say is you already know. And you're asking me to just for confirmation. But you know in your heart that this person doesn't support you. You know that your intuition is telling you that something is not right and that a true partner and the right partner is going to support you and they are going to love you and they are going to right, wrong, or indifferent if they like, even if they don't like everything that you want to do and everything that you want to become, they still will be in the front row supporting you because they love you and they care about you. And of course, if it's something that is hurting your health or hurting the health of the family or hurting the health of the relationship, of course they're going to speak up because they're not a wet noodle and they have a spine. But they are going to support you, and the right person for you, for someone who is so motivated and so career oriented, you do need a special type of person. You do need a special type of secure. You do need a special type of self-awareness, and you do need a special type of person to be able to go the distance with you. So be picky. Be picky, be selective, and those people are out there. I haven't necessarily met them yet either, but I know that they exist, and we're going to try another dating pool. But they exist, and they're out there. And there's a reason you're feeling the way that you're feeling, and lean into that. They aren't the right person. This isn't the right person.
What advice, what would I, look, I'm 50. What advice would I give? I'm 50.
I'm 50.
What advice would I give to my 25-year-old self or to an up-and-coming 25-year-old woman? I think that's, look, I regret some of my choices, and you're going to regret some of your choices. Yeah. Don't wallow in the regret. Make sure that you are focusing on what you learn from the not good choices, because we can, just as there's so much we learn from the bosses who sucked, and just as much as there are from the great leaders, I learned so much about who I didn't want to be. And the only real failures in life are when we mess up and we pay no attention to what the mess up actually was, and we just keep
rolling along.
Yeah. So as long as
be present, be aware, be in the moment,
and be okay with messing up, be okay with failure. Some of the greatest things in your life will come from those failures. And it will propel you even further and better and beyond where you were before the mess up.
Yeah.
As long as you are willing to acknowledge and accept it and learn from it.
We love to support our friends, and Claudia is going to be announcing her podcast here soon. So if you've really enjoyed listening to her or hearing her perspective just on career and life and personal relationships, all of the above, she is going to be starting her own podcast in probably a matter of 2 months or so. So definitely be on the lookout for that. We will cross collaborate with Claudia on our social media.
We're going to Clauderate.
We're going to collaborate with Claudia. And we will be collaborating on each other's podcasts. But I'll be on yours, I assume.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, we'll have fun. So thank you so much for listening to the podcast today. If you want to get in touch with Claudia, how can they do that in the meantime?
You can go to claudia-williams.com to learn more about me. Go on LinkedIn and find me at, I should probably know what that is. Look in her show notes.
LinkedIn/Claudia Williams.
Yeah, something like that. But my email is claudiawilliams@humanzonebiz.com.
Yes. Thank you so much for coming to the podcast. And I look forward to seeing you guys next week.